Yeah, yeah. Get your ass up and hurrah.
Would you like drugs then?
Our next guest was an article in the paper in the Times about MSG. Of course, I'm always scouring the highways and byways for interesting material to bring to our listeners because that's what they expect. And when I hit the MSG thing, which is and I'm going to pull out the book right now. When I saw the MSG, it was like, wow. I mean, this is one of those, I think, misunderstood, and a lot of people have used that misunderstanding against us, because it is one of those things you need to be aware of, one of those products. And joining us now, the author of the book, she has a website and all kinds of good stuff we're going to get into, is Debby Anglesey. Debbie, good morning.
Good morning, Brian.
But nice to finally talk with you after 47 emails, huh?
Right.
You've been busy. Now, you had told me when the article came out about MSG that you were inundated with requests about information, which tells me nothing more than there is a lot of concern and interest in this.
Oh, yes, and the No MSG hotline received about 100 calls within the first, probably 4 hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, why? Let's start with why is that?
Well, a lot of people are starting to correlate their symptoms with what they're eating.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a growing problem. We're hearing reports all the time from parents and teachers who are sick and tired of seeing kids line up for their Ritalin medication.
Oh.
Yeah, and we're hearing from people all over the country.
So, in other words, it's diet related, which we're finding out so much more these days about the diet and its effect on us. But it's also misdiagnosis, I guess.
Yes, very often doctors are treating different symptoms that are very typical of MSG toxicity.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the symptoms?
Well, I can tell you a little bit about how I began.
Sure.
I started to have like a real rapid heartbeat. This was about 25 years ago. And then I developed terrible migraines. And soon that became stomach problems, colitis, cramping, diarrhea. I'd get pain in my hands and feet and knees. So you get sort of an arthritic-like condition. I'd get dizzy, flushing, shuddering. And then I would have sort of a feeling of agitation. I'd get blurred vision.
My goodness.
Post-nasal drip was terrible to live with. And bloating. A lot of people complain of that, too. Sometimes ringing in the ears. And now we're hearing a lot of reports from people who are having seizures. Their children are. Tremors. Terrible skin disorders. We've had reports recently of a lot of people who have been rushed to the hospital for pseudo heart attacks or gallbladder attacks.
Now, didn't you just have one of those instances here recently?
Sorry, Mom. My mom's listening over there. We had dinner over there, and my husband ate a lot of the things that people brought, and a lot of these things, of course, have MSG in them. We cook from scratch. We were very careful in our home. And, of course, when he's loose out there, he likes to try all these neat things.
Sure.
And he doesn't have the headache, so it's not as obvious for him. But he has pain that just is tremendous under the rib cage. And then he had very violent vomiting for 7 hours.
Well, I want to jump over here a little bit because I want to make sure people know what monosodium glutamate is. Tell them what is it?
Well, it's the sodium salt of glutamic acid, and that's a non-essential amino acid. But it's used as a flavor enhancer. Because it tricks our brain into perceiving sweet and salty flavors instead of the bitter or the sour taste. And that's why the food producers just love it. You know, they can take poorer quality things and make them taste better or get rid of that tinny flavor from the can.
Well, and I remember when I first started reading the book and going through the information you had provided, I remember when I was in culinary school, and this was back in 1976 to 78, I was there back in the old days, and I had an instructor who, the big thing about when you learn to cook is that you put all the ingredients together and you get to the point where it says adjust seasonings. And typically that means adding more or less salt and pepper to it. But his standard remark is you need salt, pepper, and MSG.
I'd have to disagree.
Well, I mean, yeah, exactly, but he's
Right.
coming from the old school of
Right,
it needs more flavor. Boom, you add the MSG to it.
That's true, and it will. You're right. That's exactly what it's been created to do.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, a really good cook doesn't need that, right?
Well, I don't even see so much just MSG on the shelves anymore. I guess you do. It's under some guys' names, is it not? What are some of the disguised names of MSG?
You can still buy it in its pure form, and that's 78% free glutamic acid. But nowadays, you can find it under some really misleading names. You see words like hydrolyzed protein. That can contain 40% glutamic acid, and you don't know it.
Hydrolyzed vegetable protein.
Hydrolyzed vegetable protein. And autolyzed yeast. You see that everywhere. It's in crackers. Calcium caseinate. You see that a lot in your meat products too, cold cuts. And that's actually hydrolyzed milk protein, which has a lot of free glutamic acid.
So we can assume anything that says hydrolyzed is going to have MSG in it?
Autolyzed.
Autolyzed, okay.
Autolyzed also. Isolated. You might hear words like isolated. Natural flavors. If you hear the word or see the word natural flavors, that can contain MSG.
Because is MSG a natural occurring?
It is in milk and mushrooms and also tomatoes. That is a different form. It's a natural occurring MSG, or I should say glutamate, and it's bound. But in the factory, the peptide links have been destroyed. And so it's a new product. It's D-glutamic acid. And this is not even found in nature.
In the advent now of all the chemicals that we see on the labels of food, we oftentimes hear the old notion: if you can't pronounce it, don't eat it. It's probably a safe thing to follow. We're talking with Debbie Anglesey. I want to make sure I pronounce that crazy. Anglesey about MSG, and we come back. We're going to talk more with Debbie, not to scare you, but to make you aware, and maybe this will help some of these symptoms you've been having. So stay where you are. Don't touch that dial. Chef Brian will be back on Como News Talk 1000. And we are back. It's 11:44. We're talking with Debbie Anglesey about MSG. And Debbie, when we broke, we were talking about the presence of MSG in many different foods. And I would imagine it's going to be, unless you buy the book, it's going to be kind of hard to track where they all show up.
Well, there's at least 60 pseudonyms that we are aware of that it's hidden in. The FDA allows it to go that way, unlabeled as MSG, if it's part of another product. And we're really concerned about children, too, because we're hearing a lot of reports, parents that have found that ADD was caused by this. And behavioral problems, the rage disorder we're seeing, too. A lot of asthma, obesity even. We just got a letter sent to us, and in it was a copy of a Science News, and it was from September. And there was a doctor, I believe his name was Ian Murphy. He was retired, and he said he saw no type 2 diabetes in young people when he started his practice back in, I think it was the early 60s. And by the time he retired in 95, it was just very commonplace. And he blamed it on MSG. He said in tests done on rats, baby rats were given MSG the first 9 days of their lives. And they found out that the pituitary gland was damaged. And so these rats were obese and lethargic and hypothyroid for the rest of their lives. And so we're hearing from doctors who say that they believe MSG triggers the release of insulin, just like sugar does. And then that releases our fat food, the storage that we have inside all of us, and also more cravings. And then, of course, this triggers the adrenaline rush, and then that releases the serotonin in our brain, and this is used to calm us down after that adrenaline rush. And so we're using up all that feel-good juice of our brain, and then we crash. We become blue and crave all these, rush foods again.
Sure.
So
yeah.
Imagine how much money they've spent trying to silence good people who are putting their lives on the line to fight for change.
Here's your drug, sir. Have a nice day.